Welcome back, listeners. It is time once again for your favorite installment of somebody reading the preview chapters of Wind and Truth. Not illegally, but also not technically legally. Oh, right.
We're fine.
Forewarning. There is something that is going to be potentially... What's the word? It's not quite offensive, but potentially offensive. That happens in today's episode. It is not that I am going to make any character sound like Jimmy Pesto Jr. from Bob's Burgers, but the Lopin, Sanderson has said he specifically wrote Herdagians as an analog of Mexican culture, and so I will be reading the Lopin as if he were Mexican, not Australian. If you are opposed to this, I actually don't really care. But
yes, he's supposed to have a Spanish accent, not an Australian one.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. It's going to be great. Feel free to skip to chapter 13 or the discussion after chapter 12 if you do not wish to hear that. But I expect you will, because it's going to be great. He has some great lines.
He does.
All right. With that, we have not really any Sanderson news other than if you signed up to go to the World Hopper Ball at Dragonsteel, they are going to release tickets to that on the... Is it 17th? Or 19th? Later this month. You have seen an email for it. If you signed up to get tickets and you have not seen that email, go check your email. They have 600 tickets per event. They're hosting 5 events over the 3 days.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
They did say that it's only for Nexus ticket holders too, right?
Yes. Nexus ticket holders, adults only, and that's it. Yeah. Yeah, for all you...
I think it's just because it's like very... I think there might be alcohol at the later ones.
Yep.
I think
there's going to be cocktails available for purchase.
So I don't think it's a Dragonsteel's Against Kids thing. I think it's more of like a Utah, like the Salt Palace type of rules thing. So
right, like how raffles are illegal in Utah.
Sure.
Anyways, found that out last year.
I was gonna ask you, do we know when the Words of Radiance Kickstarter, when that stuff's gonna start shipping? Because it's been quiet.
They said fall, and I know
it's fall.
It's not quite fall. Fall starts
it's close to fall.
22nd.
I just want an update is all, okay?
I expect that they will give us an update either... Oh, hi, Wolfie. I expect they will give us an update either this next Sanderson update or in the next one, or potentially after that in that one. Or at some point in the future.
That's a bold assumption, but okay.
Oh, hi, Wolfie.
We'll roll with it. Oh, hi, Wolfie.
Okay, why are you panting at me, though?
I don't know if we filled in listeners, I guess viewers, last week on why my camera's off, but
I think I did include that in the video.
Okay.
But not the story.
For those new, for those who forgot, I took a nasty fall.
He tried to pretend to be a windrunner.
Yeah. Well, more like lift.
More like an edge dancer, you're right.
Yeah, but I dislocated my clavicle, so that's healing. It's about 8 weeks recovery. I am keeping the camera off just to not upset any viewers who are easily disgusted with bones.
Even though you're in a sling and you're wearing a short shirt.
I mean, I just don't want to make anyone sad.
I think we can all appreciate that. For those of you joining us for the first time as well, welcome. We have, in addition to Griff and I being the Silverlight Guides to the Cosmere, we do have our guest host, the Sandbox. His link is down in the doobly-doo. He puts out Cosmere, Marvel, Disney content. He has great videos.
Yes.
He's
I'm
very entertaining.
I'm working on a new spooky season book review. Just a short one.
Yes.
Easier to make with my my disability.
That's good.
Cripple.
Makes sense.
But yeah, the next one will be a Cosmere video. I've been working on it for a few months. It's just this injury is putting it back a bit. So hoping for late October, early November. Definitely before Wind and Truth. But
before Wind and
gonna
Truth,
look out for that.
before Dragonsteel Nexus.
Yes, definitely.
Odium reigns. Okay. I think that was all the. Did y'all hear something? Was that me? Oh, just kidding.
Sounded like blasphemy to me.
All right. Without any further ado, I am going to read chapter 12, and then we're going to discuss it, and then we're going to read chapter 13, and then we're going to discuss it, because that's the format.
That is the format. Yes.
That is the format. Okay.
Sick. All right. Adios.
I'm recovering. Okay.
Sorry. Let me amend that. Adios, Gancho.
Adios, Gancho. That sounded almost Japanese. Don't laugh at that, please. Okay.
I'm already laughing.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Chapter 12. Beyond the Brands. I was not with them. I did not know of their quest. From Knights of Wind and Truth, page 10. Kaladin and Syl flew high above Urithiru, where he, pack on his back, ready to go, could face to the west, toward the setting sun. He hovered, wind in his hair, armor spren alighting on his shoulders and head, glowing as pinpricks of light, the shape they always took now. This was it. Almost time to go. The high storm was passing beneath Urithiru, black clouds rumbling with lightning. He felt an urgency to get to Azamir ahead of its arrival there, so he could catch it and be on his way. Before that, he needed to say farewell to Bridge 4. He hovered, delaying. Perhaps he'd been delaying this all day. He'd been forced to say goodbye to Teft and Rock, the first two who had believed in him. The next to believe had been Dunny, dead for almost 2 years now. Did Kaladin really have to say goodbye to the rest? He thought again of his conversation with Wit, what the wind continued to push him to do. Syl drifted past, glancing at him as he stared out over the many mountains toward the west, and distant Shinovar, where few Easterners had ever walked. He nodded to Syl, and together they made a quick trip to arrange for something. Then they visited Teft's statue before continuing on to the tavern where the party was happening. Kaladin reached the doorway, and he saw most of Bridge 4 as he'd hoped. Only Drehy was missing, as he'd gone to fetch Adolin and Shalon. There was even a framed sketch of Teft by the wall, with a mug of sow's milk in front of it. The group was cheering Whelan, who stood, holding flatbread stuffed with salted paste, as eaten at celebrations, looking awkward, but smiling regardless. He had his spren at last. Not the expected one. He was a truth watcher, not a windrunner, but they celebrated anyway, and laughter spren buzzed through the room. Kaladin watched from the doorway and let himself appreciate how far they'd come. The windrunners accepting one singer among them didn't change everything. Kaladin knew, from his chats with Whelan, that he worried they didn't accept his people, just him. But it was progress. Kaladin was soon noticed, and he stepped in, causing a different kind of celebration, as everyone wanted to hug him or slap him on the arm. He accepted it, in part because he knew that they needed it. As some of the others started distributing mugs of lightly alcoholic wine, Kaladin found his chance to step up to Whelan and give him a salute. Congratulations. I feel out of place even more, sir, Whelan told him softly, his voice laced with the rhythmic singer way of speaking. I'm not a windrunner, yet they celebrate me. Not a windrunner, Kaladin said, but still Bridge 4, still and always, Whelan. We don't know what Ja Anat's touch will do, Whelan said. I like my spren, but you'll figure it out. You and Renarin, Kaladin said. I trust you both. He paused. Thank you. Sir? For staying with us, Kaladin said. I know you must have wanted to return to your people. Now that more listeners have been found, nobody would blame you, least of all me. But I'm proud to know you and glad to serve beside you. That means a lot, sir, Whelan said. Truly. Soon everyone had their drinks, and many of them turned toward Kaladin. Did they suspect? He saw Syl flitting around, whispering to them and their spren, likely hinting that he wanted to say something to them all. Kaladin felt embarrassed for taking the stage at Whelan's celebration, but it really was the best time. They finally quieted. Kaladin searched among them, finding so many familiar faces, and painfully feeling the lack of others. Teft, Maps, Dunny, Rock. Not Moash. He no longer missed Moash. Kaladin's hatred had eased. He'd accepted there would always be those he couldn't protect, but he had not given up his right to take Moash to task. Kaladin would see that Teft got a chance to spit on Moash in the afterlife, if such a thing actually existed. Sir? Haber asked at last. You all right? He doesn't like to be called sir anymore, Lopin said, nudging him. Please don't be forgetting his orders, Haber, even if he doesn't call them orders. Oh, right, Haber said, with a gap-toothed grin. Kaladin smiled, remembering the pure joy in Haber's face when his legs had been healed by Stormlight. It's okay, Haber, Kaladin said, bathed in warm diamond light and surrounded by friends. I'm fine. Just making sure you all know how proud I am of you. They grew more solemn as he said that. Something about his tone, perhaps. I'm proud, Kaladin repeated, drawing glory spren. Proud of who you are and what you've become. I don't think there's a captain all the world over who could feel more joy than I do right now seeing you all. I started this 2 years ago in an effort to get a handful of sorry men to look up for a change. Little did I know they'd end up taking to the skies. A sea of faces grinned at the words. Old friends like Lopin, newer ones like Lynn, and even Renarin, who, like Whelan, was still Bridge 4 despite his diverging path. Dalinar has given me orders, Kaladin explained. I'll be going west to Shinovar, so I won't be here for whatever is coming. But please remember, the enemy can kill Spren now. I won't have any more of your bonded friends falling to these new weapons. No dying? Bissig said. Is that an order, sir? You're storming right it is, Kaladin said with a smile. I simply want to say that I trust you all. If you get a chance today, stop and take a look in a mirror. Acknowledge what you've become. I don't care about heritage or legacy. I care about what we are. The Windrunners are, and will remain, a force for good. Remember that is our purpose. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is who you are. Keep your ranks open for anyone who shares that ideal. Sir? Lauren asked, earning a light smack on the back of the head from Lopin. I mean, Cal? It sounds like you're saying goodbye. Like a long goodbye. I might be, he admitted. Wit says, well, it's not important. Less than 9 days left, and I don't think any of us know for sure what happens then. So I wanted to leave you with some words, in case it's a while. Those in the group began to nod quietly as if they understood. Then, one at a time, arms rose to tap wrists. The Bridge 4 salute. Solemnly, without cheers. Kaladin returned it, and Storms, seeing them, he couldn't keep those tears back anymore. As he looked to the doorway, he saw the person he'd talked to earlier, a tattoo artist, paid to come here with tools. The others parted, then hushed, realizing what this must mean. Long ago, they'd all gotten tattoos on their foreheads, covering up brands for many of them, done in solidarity by the rest. Kaladin hadn't been able to get one then, as his body had refused the ink. It hadn't yet been ready to move beyond his brands. Those were healed now, and as Kaladin settled down in a chair, the others gathered around and cheered as the tattoo artist started the proper glyphs on his head. Bridge 4. This time, the tattoo took. When it was done, he stood up and accepted their cheers, tears in his eyes. Somehow, he'd done well with this group. Once, acknowledging that might have concerned him, might have made him worry that seeing the good would prompt some terrible fate to swoop in and punish them. Today, he could admit it without fear. He'd done a good job. Storms. He'd turned away from the honor chasm in the rain, determined to save them. And he'd done it. He'd storming done it. He loved them for being willing to let him. Hugs and handshakes followed. "You take care," Lynn whispered in his ear. "And don't be too stupid." "I'll try," he said. Then he sent them back to enjoy drinks and celebrate Whelan. They went as he asked, returning to the bar for food and songs until it was just Kaladin, Sigzil, Scar, and Lopen. "It was a good speech, Cal," Sigzil told him. "Do you remember," Kaladin said with a smile, "when you were one of my biggest detractors?" "I remember," Sigzil said, "being a voice of reason and rationality when a crazy man started saying we should practice carrying bridges in our spare time." "We hated the bridges so much we couldn't let them rest, eh, Gancho?" Lopen said with a laugh. "That's how you teach them their place. Make those bridges work." "You weren't even there then," Sigzil said. "I was there in spirit," Lopen said solemnly. "I would dream to myself, someday, Lopen, you will carry bridges. Or maybe only water, while others carry bridges. But regardless, it will be grand, because you will be able to annoy Sigzil all day long. You do not know him yet, but he deserves it." Sigzil gave Kaladin a glance that seemed to say, "You realize what you've stuck me with, right?" "You three," Kaladin said, "are all that's left of our original command structure. Well, you're among the best friends I have. I wanted to say thank you, Lopen, for your enthusiasm, Scar, for your support, Sigzil, for your concern." "Always, Cal," Sigzil said. Scar saluted. Kaladin embraced them, and when he pulled away, Sigzil was crying. "Sir," Sigzil said, "Cal, I don't think I can do this." "Lead them." "You've been doing it for weeks now." "Temporarily," Sigzil said. "You were coming back." "I assumed that right up until just now. Is it true? Are you done?" "I don't know," Kaladin said, "but if I do come back, I get a feeling it will be different. They're yours now, Sig. Lead them well." "I can't," Sigzil said. "I'm not the man you are. I don't belong here. Not only in this position, I don't know that I belong as a Radiant. I... Kaladin gripped Sigzil on the shoulder, grateful that for once Lopen didn't interject with some silly comment. Maybe he was learning. Sigzil looked up at Kaladin. Shorter than many of the other bridgemen, he also seemed younger than them. Not merely because of the height, but something in that round face, those eager eyes, that incredible weight of sincerity, buried deep beneath a veneer of cynicism. That crust had attached itself to any man who found himself in the bridge crews. "Sig," Kaladin said, "do you remember what you said way back when we were first discovering our powers, and I wondered if you'd be better off as a scribe?" "I told you I wanted to fly," Sigzil said. "What if I'm wrong, Cal? Scribing is what I'm good at doing." As a leader, I keep saying the wrong things, talking about essays I've read when the troops want inspiration. I'm sure Lopin can give the speeches. Waiting, Lopin said from behind, with sharpened wit at the ready. Will you be wanting, sure, the joke about the troll who could talk, or the one about the former bridge leader with a bad haircut? Oh wait, those are the same joke, aren't they? Kaladin sighed, then looked back at Sigzil. Do you want to give up the sky, Sig? No, he said, fervent. But that doesn't mean I should be leading. You should give it to Scar. I need to be with the new recruits, Scar said. You know I have to oversee training. You're the right one, Sig, Kaladin said. I need the person who will keep them the safest. In this case, that's the man who cares the most, who knows the most, and whose judgment I respect. You, if you don't trust yourself, trust me. I've seen you speak in meetings with queens and emperors, and you stood up for what was right. You listen when you find out you were wrong. Your battle plans are immaculate, and you know the reports like nobody else in the company. Even Ka complains she can't keep up with you. More, I know the concern you show for each soldier. You're the person for this position, and you're going to do a storming fine job of it. Sigzil, commander of the Windrunners. Having said it like that, Kaladin felt the final separation and found peace in it. He'd always be Bridge 4, but he was not their leader. The future was no longer a held breath waiting for his possible return. They needed this in order to move on. Thank you, Sigzil said. I'll try. I'll help, Sig, Scar said. It won't be so bad. And I, Lopin said, putting his hands on both of their shoulders, will be available to you as a resource for various important functions, including, but not limited to, levity when seriousness is required, the opposite as well, providing snacks and water breaks to hungry bridgemen, providing spears in the nether parts of hungry enemies, and any task requiring 2 arms, any task requiring 1 arm, and any task requiring no arms but a solid nap. How long have you been working on that? Kaladin said. Only during your conversation, Gonchol, Lopin said. The list actually includes 12 other things, but on account of personal soul-seeking and revelations, and on account of who you're literally never letting me catching a storming break, I am learning restraint and personal accountability. I am certain these mature traits will make me irresistible to all the ladies who have remarkably held themselves back so far. I'm sure they'll be along at any moment, Scar said. Any moment, Lopin said. Sigzil, looking determined, trotted off first, with Scar trailing after. Before moving to follow, Lopin floated a little into the air. Hey, he said, just wanted to say, I've never had a Gonchol like you, Cal. One with, apparently, a bad haircut? Kaladin said. Nah, Lopin said. One inspiring enough to make me, of all people, into a Gonchol. He gave one last salute, one armed with a nod and a smile. Then he was gone. It was done. Kaladin and Sil flew out of Urithiru to the plateau. It had sheer stone cliffs at the sides and 10 separate platforms running along it, each offering a portal to a different city around Roshar. Pavilions had been set up at the base of each of these oath gates, and inside one he found Zeth and got approval to transfer. The 3 of them moved through the darkness to the center of the platform. Here they found the small building to control transfers. It is time, Zeth said, landing in the doorway. I assume you don't have any other errands? No, Kaladin said. Shallan, Adolin, and Drehi will be returning via Azamir. I can see them there before we catch the high storm. I'm ready to go. Finally, Zeth whispered, I return to my homeland. Once rejected and told I lacked truth, I return with knowledge that I was right all along. We have reached the end of days, and I hunger for something I cannot describe. Pancakes? The black sword, strapped to Zeth's back, said in their minds. Zeth, I think it might be pancakes. Justice or reconciliation, the man said. Condemnation or salvation? I don't know yet. Oh, metaphorical hunger. Yeah, I understand. It paused. Can I have your pancakes, then? Kaladin smiled, then, using his blade, activated the transfer, leaving Urithiru behind. The end of chapter 12. Well, there we have what was potentially Kaladin's last time ever seeing Bridge 4.
Potentially.
Do I think that's the case? No. But I'm optimistic and stupid, so.
It's definitely.
No, I'm in agreement.
It's definitely.
Go ahead,
it's a dark thought to me that this is the last time he sees Sig, which is why in the Sunlit Man he's so shocked to see what he thinks is like a ghost of Kaladin or something.
Yep. At the same time, that could be interpreted differently, which is something I've thought, like...
Yeah, I mean, he could think that, I mean, like, if Kaladin becomes Honor is like, stuck on Roshar, he would be shocked to see Kaladin anywhere but Roshar. So, right. Something like that, I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. But I think the simplest explanation is often the truest.
Well, we also don't know how far in the future Sunlit Man is from the Stormlight Archives, because possibly holding
it's like a few weeks, I think.
I'm just saying that holding a Dawn Shard might give Sigil a much longer lifespan than even normal Knights Radiant would have, so...
Absolutely.
Because we also know that Void doesn't seem to age at the same limit as, or at the same rate as other people, so...
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Dawn Shard. Dawn Shard, good for aging. So the epigraph was pretty important, maybe. It was, I was not with them, I did not know of their quest.
Yeah, that blows my Syl theory out of the water.
It does blow the Syl theory. Now, not completely out of the water.
Unless
it's touching a little bit of water, but it would be very, very, very strange if Kaladin lost Syl between now and finding the wind. That would be weird and unlikely.
It's unlikely. So, okay. It's not impossible, but it is unlikely.
Sanderson mentioned that we are going to get I might be misremembering this. He definitely said that we're going to get answers for how big does Syl get, which we kind of already have.
Yep.
But I think he did say that there's a scene that shows it, which we haven't gotten yet. That makes me think Syl might have her own little side quest, like a solo mission later on, and maybe she didn't see.
It's
this
possible.
part.
It's possible.
I don't know.
Because I'm about to go on. I'm about to go on a small tangent. I'm about to put out some points about this epigraph that have that same exact kind of conjecture going on, which is, okay, if it's not Syl, then my guess is it's Yasna. Okay, what does the second point of this epigraph say? Second sentence say, I did not know of their quest. And like I was texting the two of you, because for those listening, we do actually exist outside the box on the screen.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that.
Outside of a recording, sometimes. Occasionally, when they let us out.
He's lying. He puts me in a kennel. Please help.
Oh my god. I call it a crate, not a kennel.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So I was like, how did Yasna not know of their quest? So the conjecture there is that she knew that they were going to Shinovar. She did not know that the wind gave them a specific quest. So
someone had a good theory that it's kind of like playing, we've talked about this before, it's kind of the boring way out where it's just like, oh, I think it's nobody. But they're saying that it might be someone we haven't met yet. That makes more sense of the book, like later on, which is something Sanderson loves to do. but they think it might be someone in Shinovar or from Shinovar, like a Shin, not Ardent, but yeah, I guess Ardent is the
Or a Shin
proper
scholar or
term.
something like
Scribe,
that.
maybe.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
scholar, scribe.
I mean, based on what we're given, I'm not going to say it necessarily will be a totally new person, but I think it may not be one of the big ones that we're all conjecturing it is.
Mm-hmm.
That it may be a
It could be
minor
Venli.
character that I don't know exactly who. I don't have a name necessarily, but I feel like it might be a more minor character that we have been introduced to, but we haven't gotten a lot of screen time with. Because it, like you said, it seems
Sure.
Yeah.
unlikely that Yasna would not know of their quest to go to Shinovar and to deal with whatever's going on there.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but it would
but
make
there
Right.
sense
could
that
be.
somebody.
I do still. I was gonna say I do still like the lift theory though.
That's
I think
that's a good
someone
theory,
proposed that last week, and I think that still stands so
right?
far.
I will say that it does make sense from what we've gotten so far. If it's being written further in the future when Lift is already a bit older and possibly a higher standing
Mm-hmm.
in the Radiant Orders, it would make sense that she's the one writing this as kind of a reflection back on what happened during that time.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I just like it because of the wind's connection to the old magic, which is connected to cultivation, and one of the three characters we know that's most closely related to cultivation is Lift.
What if it's
So I like it for that.
quick question. What if it's Venli?
yeah. That's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
When you were suggesting a minor character, but I don't think
Oh,
it
I didn't
went
hear
through.
you. I'm
Anyways,
sorry.
doesn't matter. No worries. But yeah, no, I'm on board with that. It just doesn't feel like human writing, and then they also have oral
Mm-hmm.
tradition. So when would she have learned to
Right.
write? But if it's in the future, sure.
Well,
It could be a
also, I
lot of.
mean, we
It
know
could be
that
Gaffinor in
Venli's
the future.
uh, Venli's not surge binding, but the other ability, I don't know if it's ever given a name, but the other friend that she has in her gem heart, we know that gives her
Oh,
access to all languages.
sure.
And so I
But
could
does it?
see that potentially translating to written languages as well, though we have no confirmation of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure
I
it
had a
does.
thought about maybe Dabbid, but I think he was at the party, right?
Right.
He should have been there, so he would have heard where he's going.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the quest is not the quest for them to go to Shinovar. The quest is what the wind tells them to do.
Okay, so that doesn't rule out anybody in Bridge,
But
Well, it's
Florida.
it
also what
doesn't roll.
Zeth is hoping to do in Shinovar, which is, like he said, justice or reconciliation.
Yeah, so
Right.
there's three quests. There's the wind and what it wants of Kaladin. There's Zeth trying to cleanse the false leaders, and then there is Kaladin who's going to try to talk to Ashar, right?
Yes. Though
Okay.
specifically, the wind. Actually, we can talk about that more at the end of the next chapter.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's just Kaladin. So, but
I do kind of like
that's
the
for the next
Venli
chapter.
idea, though. I'm kind of on board with that one at the moment. I think out of everybody we've suggested so far, that's the one that makes most sense to me.
Not Yasna?
No, again, I think Yasna would have been all in touch with everything that was going on, so it seems weird for her to say, "I did not know of their quest." Like that just
I think
that
it's a.
doesn't
I think it's a
track.
simple. I think it's a small logical leap to go. Oh, the quest that she's talking about here is not the quest to go to Shinovar. It is the quest the wind gave them, and then Zeth just loses the ability to span read back. So Yasna doesn't know of their quest in the sense that
Maybe,
she doesn't know what the wind told them to do. That's
maybe.
that's a much
I'm
smaller
not.
logical leap than Bentley being able to magically write languages or
Well, to
be in
be
the
fair, she
future.
also could be dictating. Like it's no, there's no, it's not necessary that she's the one legitimately writing it.
That's true. That's true. We could probably argue about this for 20 hours.
We could. I'm not saying we should continue arguing. I'm just saying that I personally like the Venli
No, we
thing.
should.
If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But that's what I like currently.
Yeah.
I found the theory on the Shin Scholar.
Okay.
This is on Reactor I Bomb Sanderfan 333. My new theory for the author of the epigraphs is a Shin Scholar, possibly related to Zeth. The author refers to Zeth without a surname or anything, refers to the East as opposed to Shinovar, and just in tone and word choice seems consistent with a Shin voice. That's debatable from my perspective. Would be interesting if the reference to the importance of Zeth's mission to all of us, or whatever that wording was, just meant Shinovar.
Somebody put that in our comments in
Oh,
one
did
of the
they?
YouTube videos, and I thought it was a good theory. I was ready with an answer for why it's still Yasna. And that is specifically talking about how they just called him Zeth without any honorifics or without the extended name. If somebody killed your father, how would you call them?
Murderer?
Probably. So maybe that's a point against Yasna, but if she was just saying like...
Yeah, I feel like Yasna can be very PC and very just monotone, de facto in her writing. I don't know.
She can be very objective, not letting her emotions get in the way of translating the facts.
Yes.
Right. So I think we can talk more about this later because I put all the epigraphs together and then I wrote out questions for every single bit that was potentially could be taken a different way. So how else do we feel about this chapter?
I wanted to bring up that I think it's interesting that his armor spren, I'm trying to find it. They're like balls of light now for some reason.
They're little pinpricks of light.
Yeah,
the way the wind spren appear in Shadesmar.
Which is odd, right? Is that just showing how closely related the tower is to the cognitive realm?
I think it may be referring. This is just how I read it. I think it may be referring to the fact that the Windspren are kind of intentionally taking a less obtrusive form, because if Cal just had a bunch of little blue figures dancing around him at all times, it could make for a bit of an awkward tableau, I think.
Yeah, another way to look at it, which is in a similar vein, is that like his armor spren are alighting on his shoulders and head, like as the armor. That's how I read it. Like they were starting to form the armor.
Also, it might be the fact that there is an inherent transformation that happens when a spren becomes an armor spren for Knights Radiant rather than a separate spren of their own.
Yeah, I mean that's one for conjecture.
I don't know.
We can if any of us get a chance at Dragonsteel Nexus to ask Sanderson, we can ask him what's up.
Yeah, if we don't get an answer up until that point, that might be a worthwhile question to pose to him.
Yeah.
I do like all the nods in this chapter to all the way back to the Way of Kings. Just definitely starting to feel very finite.
Yep.
And after the next chapter, we can discuss it a little bit more. But it in a lot of ways, this does feel like the end of Kaladin's arc in a lot of ways. Yep. And I guess the next 9 days will just be the epilogue. I don't know.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I think there is going to be something consequential that happens on his quest in Shinovar, and I actually kind of agree that absolutely. I don't necessarily believe that Cal will never see the rest of Bridge 4 again, but I definitely agree that there is going to be something significant that happens on the quest that means that he is never going to be the same person that he was before leaving.
That makes sense.
Don't know what it is. Could be good, could be bad, could be a little bit of both. But
Yeah, I agree.
now I did pose this
It was
in
a
the group
touching
chat.
matter. Okay.
Oh no,
You
sorry,
didn't
go
pose
on.
it in the group chat? No, you go ahead.
Okay, fine. I did pose this in group chat
No,
and
I'll
nobody
go,
said
actually.
anything. Do we think that Nightblood could activate an Oathgate? Or do we think that it would fuck
Oh,
it all to
yes, you
hell
did
by
text
eating
that.
the Stormlight?
I don't think it would activate the Oath Gate. I think it would act like a Dead Shard Blade. It would just kind of go in, and then
So
nothing
you
would
don't think
happen.
it might actually eat the Stormlight from the Oathgate instead?
Well, because you need the Stormlight to activate the Oath Gate, so like there's no Stormlight just sitting there. Now, if
Do
you
we
went
think
into
that it would have...
Shademar, go ahead.
Okay, go on, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say, have we seen how Nightblood interacts with a Spren? Like, if
God, I don't
Nightblood
want to.
hit one of the Oathgate Spren in Shadesmar,
I
also does Nightblood poop?
considering the way
Just
it
kidding.
affected Odium's shell, I definitely think that it would have a very detrimental effect on Spren.
Zeth is gonna lock all the Oath Gates by killing the Spren, confirmed.
Okay, we need to get through chapter
Are-
13, but that's actually not necessarily a terrible idea for how a situation is resolved.
That's true. Okay, we need to get through chapter 13. What else do
Yeah,
we
we
want
do
to
need
say about
to.
this
Yeah.
chapter?
I don't think I had any other thoughts
I
about
think
this
we can.
chapter.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we can leave anything else for after 13 as well.
I agree. Okay, this one's a long one, so settle into your britches. It's gonna be more fun than eating ice cream in your pajamas.
Whoa.
That's fun.
Okay.
We got this. I'll try my best to make it go by quickly. Chapter 13. Promise. Yet I will do my best to recount their story, and that of the wind, for they were her champions. From Knights of Wind and Truth, page 11. Shallan heaved a sigh of relief as, after flying several tense hours, worried about more enemy patrols, she spotted the Oathgate platform breaking through the beads ahead of them. Two towering spren, one coal black, the other bone white. Beneath was a disk of stone perhaps 25 feet wide, with a small group of guards holding up lanterns and waving. Adolin and Gallant came soaring down, guided by Shiosak, the Windrunner. The midnight black horse touched down in a nimble trot, then proceeded to prance around the stone Oathgate platform as if on parade. Had she ever seen a Rashadium, a massive warhorse with hooves like a blacksmith's hammer, prance before? Shallan landed under Drahi's care, and her weight settled upon her, clothing falling down straight, boots firm on the stone. She undid her hair from its frazzled bun, and a few beads fell from her clothes, clacking against the platform. Odd. She'd thought those had all shaken loose during 2 hours of flight, wind battering her. She turned to walk toward the guards, and the beads followed. Shallan froze in the collection of beads, seeing her inspect them, bounced up and down. Was this an illusion? Storms. She hated that she had to ask herself that, but in the past she'd done things she hadn't realized she was doing. Adolin dismounted nearby, frowning at the beads. What's wrong with them? Shallan knelt and picked one up, getting the impression of a rooftop. No, a domed cavern. No, a long thin room. No, a goblet. A table. It was changing so quickly. Then it transformed from a bead into a swirling bit of color. Creation spread? She'd been finding them in her satchel all during her trip through Shadesmar, and now... What? Pattern landed nearby with a stumble. He stood up, laced his long fingers together, and inspected the beads, his head shifting and transforming. Testament walked up behind him, though she didn't seem specifically interested in what they were doing. She was merely following the crowd, as Maya once did. What are we doing? Pattern asked. Staring at the creation spren? I do like to stare. It makes me feel as if I have eyes. Wait, Shalon said. Creation spren can look like beads? Yes, they're tricky, Pattern said. Always pretending to be something else. Very tricky. Good liars. In here, though, most objects from your realm look like beads. The creation spren try to become those objects, so they get confused and swirl with light. Or they just become beads. She picked up another, and it bounced in her hand, like an overeager child. She swore she could hear, in her mind, a little voice. She swore she could hear, in her mind, a little voice saying, Shalon! 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 Around her feet the others bounced as well, some becoming swirls of color. Did that mean? Drahe came jogging over. We have a problem. Worse than the approaching army? Adolin asked. Involving it, perhaps. They joined the guards, who were led by an Azish man in full military garb, including a sash of intricate, colorful patterns. He didn't salute. The Azish didn't salute those not in their chain of command, but he did nod respectfully to Adolin and Shalon. It's the Spren, the Azish soldier said, waving to the two towering Spren floating in the air overhead. They brought us into Shadesmar earlier, but now they're refusing to talk to me. The giant spren were the souls of the Oathgate, the very mechanism by which the machine worked, making it possible to transfer people in and out of Shadesmar, or between places on the planet. Every Oathgate had them, and they had proven to be of varied levels of helpfulness. Spren? Shalon asked, walking to the center of the platform and shouting upward. Spren, I am here by the authority of the bondsmith. Which one? The black spren asked, voice booming like a thunderclap. Which one? Oh, right, Navani. Both, Shalon shouted. We need transference to the physical realm. We will transfer you, the spren said. For now. For now? She shouted back. Why only for now? We change, the spren said. We decide. Change? She felt a spike of alarm. Drahe, I need to go up there. A moment later, Shalon and Drahe hovered to eye level with the pitch-black spren. Her coat rippled as she hung, toes pointed down, smaller than just this massive spren's head. Behind her, the white one was staring out across the beads, in the direction of the army. Best they could tell, these were both transformed ink spren. Like the smaller ink spren she'd seen, the one before her had a faint sheen to it, a mother-of-pearl luminescence, like oil on water. Underneath, parts of the spren's face were turning from a jet black to a deep, bloody red, like impurities in a gemstone. Ja Anat had been here. You've been corrupted, Shalon whispered. The guards were supposed to watch for that, protect you, or raise a warning. There was no warning to give, the spren said, voice softer to not overwhelm her, though it still made Shalon shake and vibrate. I have made my decision. So has my companion. We are ready for freedom. Freedom? Shalon asked. We become something else. Not odium. Not honor. Free. With a feeling of sinking dread, a piece fell into place for Shalon. A large army moving through Shadesmar would be useless if it couldn't reach the physical realm. The real danger would be if it poured out through the portal to overwhelm Azimir, the heart of one of the Coalition's strongest nations. You'd let the singers through? Shalon asked. We let you through. We're your friends. I don't know you, the spren said. You aren't my friends. You are my oppressors. Now I find liberation. Go. We will transfer you, and will continue to do so for now. When the singers arrive, we will transfer them. This is liberation. Storms. Shallan didn't know how to react. If this spren was genuinely being corrupted. But the same thing had happened to Renarin's spren, and he continued to help them, right? Plus, she couldn't help feeling a pang of empathy for a spren who felt trapped. She knew that feeling. I'm sorry, Shallan said, for what has been done to you. I agreed, the spren said. First to the bondage, and now to the liberation. I am finished with what was. It hesitated. This is good for us all. Go to the other side. Leave me. She considered trying to change the spren's mind, but realized the task was beyond her. She needed to reach Dalinar, Navani, and Yasna. They would better understand how to handle the whims of an unexpectedly hostile spren. Plus, every moment they spent in Shadesmar seemed a risk. If her group were somehow captured or killed, the news would die with them. She nodded to Drehi, and they dropped. Sha-Anat has touched these two, she whispered to Adolin. We need to go to the other side now, while they're still willing. They gathered together, including the Azish guards, whom Adolin was filling in on the approaching army. She made sure all the Windrunners were touching the stone, then called for the transfer. It happened in a flash of light, and instantly they were in a small, dark chamber. The sensations of the real world poured in. The intoxicating scent of spices that she'd missed while dining on travel rations, the sudden absence of the omnipresent beads grinding together. Instead, wooden walkways groaning, footsteps, and beyond that, wind. The sound of a high storm blowing and rain pelting. It was strikingly beautiful to her, like an old, familiar melody. All of it together reminded her how alien Shadesmar had been, and how strange the human mind was to have briefly found it natural. She lifted her arms to her sides, breathing it in, and out of nowhere a suit of red armor locked around her, forming out of mist. It crumpled and even tore in places, her long coat. It encased her arms, pushed her satchel painfully into her ribs, and locked her head in a helmet, pressing her hair against her scalp and pulling at some of the strands. Shallan gasped, suddenly constricted by the tight armor, and a part of her mind panicked, misinterpreting this as some kind of attack. Faintly, she heard the pieces speaking. Shallan! 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 Gleeful, excited voices. So, one of those truths she'd spoken in there had done the trick. She had obtained the fourth ideal, likely when she'd confronted Vale, or when she'd spoken the words earlier to accompany those revelations. Adolin's eyes went wide. Then he grinned like a schoolboy, joy spren appearing around him in a swirl of blue leaves. Great. Of course he would love this. Thankfully, Radiant came to her aid. Can you do something? Radiant said to the armor. About the hair and the satchel? The armor sent back consternation. It was new. The spren had never been armor before, and had only vague impressions of how to proceed. Radiant was forced to send a distinct mental image, which made the gorget loosen. Then the helmet vanished so Radiant could pull her hair out and let it drape around her shoulders. The armor wasn't as intelligent as Pattern, but it was eager to please, so with proper visualization, she got the armor to vanish and reappear in a way that left the satchel on the outside. Unfortunately, the strap immediately snapped. As she grabbed it, the armor seemed thoughtful. Then one section fuzzed again, making a kind of side holster out of metal that would hold the satchel. Shallan! The armor said, voices of the pieces overlapping, sounding proud of itself. Well, that would do. If only Shallan would wear her hair in a utilitarian braid. It took so long to prepare it in the morning. Perhaps Shallan would agree to cut it down to 1 inch long. The immediate horror from Shallan made Radiant back away from the idea. This is well, Radiant said, looking at Adolin, though I will need training in its usage, I believe. Yeah, Adolin said. Radiant? She nodded. Don't try to hold hands with anyone with that on. Or pick up anything. Or, well, just be careful. She dismissed the armor and fell 1 inch or so to the ground. Then she summoned it again as practice, further ripping the coat and making Shalon cringe. Perhaps they could coach the Spren on that. The helmet appeared and fit into place, leaving space at her neck for her hair to spill out the back, which didn't seem the most intimidating image. The helmet, though, was wonderful. It was strangely transparent from the inside, giving her a full view. In addition, the glowing Lightweaver symbol emblazoned on the front of the suit was nicely striking. The Creation Spren were eager to know if they were doing this right, so Radiant gave them mental reassurance. Inwardly, Shalon snickered, imagining them summoning their armor in battle and ending up with a pot on their head, a barrel around their middle, and various bathroom appliances stuck to their arms. So that was an image Radiant had to live with. That girl's imagination. Honestly. We must quickly transfer to Urithiru, Radiant said, noting that the Azish guards were already running to deliver the news to their emperor. The Oathgate here in Azamir was unique, as it was defended in a strange way. This had once been a market, and had a large dome covering it. Upon hearing that the Alethi had access to the Oathgates, the Azish moved the market and turned this into a strange kind of inward-facing fortification. Radiant supposed that if one of the Oathgates was going to get assaulted, this might be the best target. That large dome was mostly of metal, hundreds of yards wide, with a high balcony ideal for stationing archers to shoot downward. Only, could they say this was the sole Oathgate being approached? Or were hidden invasion forces heading to other locations as well? The Azish made them vacate the control building first, despite her desire to go immediately. There was paperwork to fill out, of course, because this was Azir. Nothing too egregious, a log of who was using the Oathgate and why. They'd need to wait for approval via Spanreed. Radiant endured it. She probably could have bullied them into going faster, but as long as the news of the impending army was in the Emperor's hands, the news was out. Likely the information would get to Dalinar and Navani via Spanreed before she and Adolin could reach the King and Queen. Though, storms, how late was it? In Shadesmar, they'd lost track of the physical world schedule. Talking to one of the guards, she discovered it was almost midnight and the middle of the high storm. As she was thinking on this, someone entered the small tent at the edge of the dome, where they were waiting. Kaladin, with his blue uniform and shoulder-length hair with a faint curl to it. Shalon had always appreciated that Kaladin didn't cut it short, as this felt like him, but Radiant did wonder at his reasoning. Didn't it give enemies something to grab onto? Hey, Shalon thought at Radiant, I'm not shaving my head. It would be so much more efficient, Radiant said, and you could just recreate the hair with an illusion. Shalon took over and hurried through the tent, jumping up to give Kaladin a hug, storming Alethi giants. Syl entered a second later and had for some reason grown to the size of a human, as she appeared in Shadesmar. Plus, she was in some kind of uniform. In that case, well, Shalon let go of Kaladin, who as usual had suffered the hug as if he were a log, and grabbed Syl in a hug too. There wasn't much to hold. On this side, an honor spren was mostly incorporeal. Shalon's hands connected with something, but could pull in past the borders of Syl's substance. It felt less like holding a physical being and more like the resistance you got when you pushed two magnets of the same polarity together. Syl laughed and tried to hug back. Hey, Syl, Adolin said as he stepped up and slapped Kaladin on the back. Nice uniform. Thanks, Syl said. I made it myself. Out of myself. I like the cut of the hem, Adolin said. I haven't seen many Kotakamas around, except in old art. Stop gushing about clothing, Shalon said, then looked at Kaladin. Do you have news? We have news. An army is gathering in Shadesmar, Adolin said. They're mobilizing against Azamir. We need to scout the other Oathgates, Shalon continued. Can you fly us? After we talk to Dalinar. Kaladin smiled. I'm sure some Windrunners can be assigned to that. I'm not going into battle anymore. Your father has another duty for me. Another duty? Adolin said. It can wait. There will be a meeting. We have to address this attack. I'm certain you will handle it well, Kaladin said. He glanced at Syl, who nodded. We're going to Shinovar with Zeth to scout out what's happening there, then hunt down Ishar the Herald. Cal, Shalon said, there might be a battle coming. Bigger than any fight we've ever seen before, judging by its mobilization. We need every soldier. Surely if we talk to Dalinar, he'll cancel your forced leave. He's already offered to do that, Kaladin said, but I think I'm needed more elsewhere. Or maybe Wit would say I need to be doing something else. It's time for me to find another path, Shallan. Adolin inspected him, thoughtful. It's all right, Kaladin said, meeting her eyes, then Adolin's. I can't explain it, but this is the path I have to take. Storms. Is that optimism in your voice? She wanted to make some wisecrack, but found the words wouldn't flow, not given the expression on Kaladin's face. Confident? Yes. Optimistic as well. But also regretful? Solemn? I think he's always been optimistic, Adolin said. You don't jump in to save a doomed man unless you're optimistic. Honor is dead, Kaladin whispered. You were wrong on that point, though, Adolin said. Honor isn't dead. But, Kaladin started. Honor isn't dead, Adolin continued, so long as it, lives on in us. We'll go to the meeting without you, but we can meet at Yez's duty for a drink after? We found a herald in Shadesmar too, Shallan explained, showing him a drawing she said was of Kalek. You can delay your trip a few hours to hear about it, right? I don't know that I can, Kaladin said. Zeth, Sil, and I need to ride that high storm outside. We should have left already. Cal? Shallan said, raising her chin. What's that tone in your voice? Out with it. Wit made it sound like... Well, he made me think I should see the people I care about before I leave. We never know what is going to happen tomorrow. Then, remarkably, even though she'd already hugged him, he awkwardly bent and gave her a hug. He followed it by hugging Adolin, and if she were the jealous type, she'd have noted that Adolin's hug was longer than hers. You're going to be all right? Adolin said as Kaladin stepped back. No idea, Kaladin said. But I feel good, Adolin. That's all I can focus on for the time being. Hey, Shallan said, leaning in. Keep an extra eye on Zeth. I don't trust him. We can handle him, Sil said. We've done it before. If you're ditching us now, Cal, Adolin said, then I'm taking it as a promise for later. The four of us. He nodded to Sil. Drinks once this is done. You two should go, Kaladin said. If you're right about an army, then Dalinar will want to meet immediately. Adolin nodded, and as approval came, he gave Kaladin another slap on the shoulder before leading Gallant back through the corridor toward the Oath Gate. Shallan lingered a moment, then poked Kaladin in the side. I refuse, she told him, to say goodbye. I'm, leaving anyway, Shallan. Leave then, she said, but we started this. You and I. Radiance before anyone else. Except Yasna, and maybe Lift, and perhaps you and I, she said. We're there at the start. We meet at the end, like Adolin said. Then the world is safe, and Dalinar's done what he need. When the world is safe, and Dalinar's done what he needs to, we can all laugh and joke again. Shallan, you have to promise, he sighed. I can't promise what the future will be. Reality warps around you, Kaladin. It always has. Promise me. If there's a promise, then we can make it happen. He met her eyes, then nodded. Drinks, jokes, laughter. At the end. I promise. She gave him one last nod, then she followed Adolin while Kaladin said a quick goodbye to Drahi. After that, the Windrunner soared in with his squires and beat Shallan and Adolin to the control building at the center. There, Shallan summoned her Shardblade, and it was Testament. She froze, feeling echoes of loss, but then reconciliation. She had faced this. She could face this. From her coat, she heard a soft buzzing. Pattern, with his characteristic hum. 2 Shardblades. Adolin, Radiant asked, holding the ornate weapon, are there forms for wielding 2 Shardblades at once? Of course there are, he said. They're all practically useless, though. Oh. Sword and knife can be effective, he said, and I've seen arguments for 2 side swords. Even that's more showy, in my opinion, than effective. There just isn't much advantage to a second sword over a shield, or 2 handing 1 sword. Plus, when we get to the length and size of shard blades, well, Radiant, I think we still have work left to get you fighting effectively with one. She nodded, but what was that about sword and shield? She determined to give that some thought after this was done. For now, testament blade in hand, she stepped up and slid the weapon into the keyhole in the wall of the small control building. With a nod from Drahe, who had swapped for more Stormlight reserves, she rotated the inner wall of the circular chamber, activating the device. They appeared in a ring of light on the cold, surprisingly warm plateau outside Urithiru. Radiant frowned, stepping outside into humid, toasty warm mountain air. Her ears didn't pop as she swallowed, as usually happened when she came to Urithiru. Shallan was back in a heartbeat. What had happened to the pressure? The cold. It was night here in Urithiru, but the tower was glowing. Light shone from windows up and down the structure. A pure, steady light. The wrong color. A shade too green to be stormlight. Other lights lit the way, from the ground up, along the main plateau toward the tower, where the grand entry shone like the tranquiline halls themselves. Even the stonework seemed more colorful. The city she'd left had felt like the discarded shell of some animal. Now that animal had returned, and Urithiru was alive once more. The windrunners streaked off into the sky, trailing stormlight. They'd bring the news to the bondsmiths and generals. Adolin walked up to her, leading Gallant. There will undoubtedly be a meeting of the monarchs in a few hours. In a few hours? She said, surprised. I thought it would be immediate. That is immediate, Adolin said with a chuckle. When you need to rouse everyone out of bed, we should have time for a quick change and a bite first, maybe even a nap. She nodded, falling into step with him and crossing the wide, circular platform that made up the extended oath gate, preparing herself. The monarchs and bondsmiths would deal with the coming army. She needed to gather the lightweavers she'd left here and come up with a plan to deal with Mraze. There's a chapter break. Kaladin watched from the side of the Oathgate Dome in Azamir as Shallan and Adolin crossed it, holding hands. Who would have thought that he would be tearing up at the idea of parting from a couple of light eyes, one who'd rejected his advances, the other who was a king's son. He watched them go and found himself relieved? Storms, was this how his emotions worked when his brain wasn't betraying him? What? Syl asked. I was just thinking about how I'd pined for Shallan back before she was married. Does it hurt seeing them together? There's some latent pain, he admitted, more about being rejected, as nobody likes being turned down, but Storms, I'm actually happy it turned out this way. Because they love each other? Syl asked. Yeah, they're my friends. I want them to be happy. But there's more. I try to imagine myself with Shallan, and I can't help thinking that our individual neuroses would feed off one another in dangerous ways. My sadness feeling her feelings of abandonment when I retreat, her self-destruction triggering my panic at being unable to help. He looked to Syl and smiled. It wouldn't have to go that way, of course. I've seen that it can help to be around people who understand firsthand what it's like for your mind to betray you. Maybe we'd have worked it out. But right now, I'm glad I didn't have to try. I'm glad she has Adolin. He's what she needs. And what do you need? Syl asked softly. Always looking out for me, are you? It's basically my only job. He took a deep breath. Well, I guess part of the reason for this trip is so that we can find out. The Oathgate flashed. Shallan and Adolin left, joined by Drahe and his squires. Dalinar wants me in the line of succession, Kaladin thought idly. What would that make me? Adolin and Renarin? Brothers? Storms, from what he knew of light-eyed succession and genealogy, yes, they'd be brothers. Ever practical about such things, the Alethi made no distinction between adopted heirs and birthed heirs, just as being conquered by or settling in the kingdom made you Alethi subjects, regardless of heritage. Kaladin had spiraled toward death after losing his only sibling. Then he'd found Bridge 4 and the people of the war camps. Now it seemed he had more brothers and sisters than he could count. He and Syl left the dome through a surprisingly long hallway. There was a thick stone base to the dome, here near the ground, and met Szeth in the waiting room at the side. Then he, Szeth, and Syl flew up high above the storm. They'd skimmed the top of it here, where their stormlight renewed constantly, but the winds weren't too fierce to handle. Kaladin absorbed the power of the storm, coming alight with stormlight, and felt satisfaction. "We did well, Syl," he said. "I'm proud of what we helped build and protect. I'll never completely let go of Tien or Teft, but I am proud of how I've grown." "You sound so final," she said, hovering next to him. "All day you've had this feeling to you, even before we talked to Wit." She drifted closer. "Is it the wind?" "Partially," he said, "but still, I find I'm not worried. We are going to survive this, no matter what Wit said." He nodded firmly. "We're going to have that drink with Adolin and Shallan." He held out his hand to her, and she, after a moment's pause, took it. Together, with Szeth following, they soared forward to the front of the storm wall, then joined with the winds heading westward. The end of day 1. There is an image at the end of the chapter. It has a picture of Urithiru, both the back and the front, as well as some creatures. The living tower appears structurally identical in Shadesmar, but made of infused crystal and glass glowing with light. Despite its ethereal aspect, the surfaces feel entirely solid to the touch. The presence of so many soul flames and emotions has attracted a variety of wild spren. No two of the gate spren are exactly alike. Do they match their counterparts at each location? There's an arrow pointing to a specific pair. This pair looks familiar. And here we are. All right. So, let's start with that epigraph. First, what a chapter. Second, what an epigraph. Not really. Yet I will do my best to recount their story and that of the wind, for they were her champions. So earlier, Trevor, you were talking about how there were 3 quests. One the wind gave to Kaladin, one Szeth has for his homeland, and then
Right.
Right. So this is why I was saying like the wind might have given both of them the quest, which then makes the previous epigraph like that's just my argument for why it's the
Yeah.
opera.
It's so odd to me how champions, like the word, was
Yeah.
not like a prominent term for the whole
Until
Stormlight Archive until this book. And
until
now we're
this book.
seeing that the Stormfather needs champions. There's champions, for the contest with Odium. The Wind has champions. It's very
$20.
it's very
20
confusing
bucks
and
says
interesting.
20 bucks says that the beta readers and the alpha readers at first they were like this champions thing, like the contest of champions was foreshadowed and talked about, but then you have champions over here and you need to put more champions in or else this doesn't make sense.
You
I
know
mean,
what? This might be
really,
the one time you don't listen to your beta readers.
yep, we'll see. I
Nah,
mean,
I'm Steven.
but wait, that actually that brings up a good point. So in the prologue, the Stormfather's like, "I need a champion," but are we so sure it was for a contest of champions between Odium and Honor, or could the Stormfather know what's going on with the wind?
I don't know. I also think it might be that might have been a Shar in the prologue, and the Shar is still looking for champions. Maybe he's using the wind to manipulate them there, or
Dang.
the wind is trying to battle Ishar with champions. I don't know.
I really hope something with Ashar comes through for you, because I completely forget about that theory, and every time you bring it up, and I'm like, you know what? Trevor really likes that theory. I hope something comes through for him.
Dude,
That'd be
Ishar's
great.
doing something. He's not. He's not just. He's the total wild card. It's not like Sanderson's just gonna make him some boring villain.
I mean, you make sense, but
Well, it also could be the fact that Ishar becomes something a much bigger antagonist for Era 2, rather than being an antagonist for this one.
Ishar kills cultivation confirmed.
I mean,
Yeah, interesting.
Maybe. I'm just kidding. I have no basis.
Do you guys, do you want to take a look at the chapter headings, or do you want to talk about this chapter first?
Let's do the chapter headings.
Cool. Chapter 12, 4 slots of Yezrian, which is pretty good use because it's a whole Bridge 4 chapter in a way.
It sure is.
A lot of closure there. Chapter 13 is a little bit more interesting. This one is, again, 4 slots filled by Pala or Palia, the patron of the Truth Watchers.
Ooh.
Her attributes are learned, giving, and her role is scholar.
Interesting.
Because they learned things. Shalon.
I feel like the Spren are the giving ones here. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know.
They were also giving each other hugs.
Shalon's learning about her armor and a little bit about the corrupted Spren, but
Shalon.
I wonder if it perhaps references the fact that the Oathgate Spren have I guess, open their viewpoint is opened up because they are now liberated rather than.
That could be it.
Shackled the way they originally were. But I don't know.
So we get confirmation in this chapter that Testament has been at least a shard blade for Shalon. Do we know when she had access to Testament as a shard blade? Has it been this whole time? Or was it her early life and then now?
I'm pretty sure she didn't stop having access to Testament.
Well, she's been using Pattern as well, right? Or no, not yet.
She has been using Pattern. Yep. Go, Griff.
So basically, I think that probably she has truthfully had access to Testament all this entire time, but psychologically, since she didn't know that she had access to Testament, because for the longest time she didn't remember the fact that she had a cryptic before Pattern, she never tried to access or call Testament because she didn't know Testament existed.
Two things on that. She does know that she has a shard blade in Way of Kings. There are several times where she starts to call it, and then she says, no, don't stop thinking about that. And then in Words of Radiance, when Kaladin and Shalon are in the chasm together, she calls upon that shard blade, and it's not Pattern because she hasn't said that oath yet. And then she says the oath or the ideal before she needs to use a living shard blade at the oath gate. So between
is she fourth ideal with Testament or Pattern or just Pattern in general?
I think
Pattern. Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Griff, what do you think?
I think she is fourth ideal with Pattern. However, I will say I still think it's a psychological block with calling Testament because she did before, but it was always kind of in desperate situations, and she always had a trauma response to trying to call it. So I think that's still why she hadn't really called it much before now.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something because I'm trying to work this out in my head and I'm struggling. It seems to me like Sanderson's the truths that he's had Shalon speak in real time, like with the main story, has been Shalon with Pattern. We have the do they say the first ideal Journey Before Destination? Lightweavers?
I don't believe they do.
Are we sure?
Nope.
All I thought truths? Everybody all did. Truths?
To the copper.
Someone can look it up. But okay, so what we know is I am terrified. I killed my mom. I killed my dad. That's 3. And then I killed my Spren, Testament. That's 4. So has she been kind of drawing the beads and the creation Spren since that truth in Lasting Integrity? Or was this right after she said her new oath, her amended oath, I guess, extended oath of I'm terrified, and she went into all those reasons like a few chapters ago, which I feel like would have been with Testament because she already said that truth with Pattern. Are you tracking this? Does that make
I am
sense?
tracking. I am picking up what you're putting down. The first ideal is the same between all radiants, like Griff said. So she would have
Okay.
said that at some point. Although
So then
no,
she's technically fifth ideal
she's
because first
worn
truth,
5 ideals.
I am terrified. I kill my
Yeah,
mom. I kill my dad. I kill my spren. So that's all we know. Like we know she said those truths. We don't know who they were with, but I would imagine they were with Pattern.
I think. Go ahead, Griff.
Okay, so this is my theory, just because of what we know so far. She said the first ideal, the initial oath with Testament. That is why she was able to access all of the things in the past that the glimpses that we've seen so far. But with Pattern, however, she has only reached the fourth ideal, but she's not following the same progression that most Lightweavers do because of the fact that she has this connection to two Spren.
I think that's a possibility. This is unprecedented territory, so
It is. I am curious to see if Sanderson ever states exactly what ideals are for what purpose.
I think you absolutely will give us that after the book if it's not relevant for the back half.
Yeah, I agree. Right. So then we found out that the Oathgate Spren are giant ink Spren, which makes sense given their ability to do something with the surge of. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Griff.
Sorry, just to jump in here, but I did put this in the group chat and I'm still curious. So, them being Inkspring kind of shot a hole in one of my theories, which was the fact that edge callers would be able to use transportation to go between Shadesmar and um, uh, the physical realm, I guess, and that will shapers would be able to transport from place to place physically. Because I thought that was going to be the differentiation between their two uses of transportation, the transportation
Mm.
surge. But clearly, that's not actually the case because it's Inkspren that are sitting at the gate for, I guess, both functions. But I'm curious if you could replace the Inkspren with Lightspren and achieve the same results.
I was thinking
Why
about that
why Lightsprung?
because the Reachers have they also share the surge of transportation.
Okay.
Yeah, the Lightspren are the Spren for the Will Shapers, which are the only other Radiant Order that has transportation as a surge.
I expect, like, system-wise, you probably could do that, and then the reason they didn't do that is that Inkspren were probably more up for it. But that's just the theory. Like, freedom. They probably didn't want to be trapped. That's fair. What else did we find out? We found that Azamir may be not as screwed as we thought they were because they have good battlements at the Oathgate.
Mm-hmm.
Creation Spren look like beads, or can look like beads in Shadesmar. We also found out that the Creation Spren sound like the aliens from Toy Story. That's how they sounded in my head. Shalon, the claw, the claw. It was. I mean, both of these chapters were just kind of like it. So something I didn't mention in the last one. It was like we talked in the last one. People sometimes they have an issue with this kind of chapter that's slower paced, not as revelatory, more character building. Like if you have a skeleton and you have skin and you have some muscle, you're still lacking a lot of the interstitial stuff. There's a lot of
Right.
stuff you're still lacking. So You gotta have
this is what gives it a soul.
yeah.
That
As
human
opposed to
connection.
Red Rising, which I'm sorry.
Every week with you. I gotta read this book just to see why you hate it so much.
Yeah. Sorry. That was I gotta control myself.
Yeah, shame on you.
Yes, Griff.
Is there a limit on how many people the Oathgates can transport at once? Because if Azmir does have this kind of like inner facing fortress around their Oathgate, and the Oathgate can only transport a certain number of people at a time, I feel like it would be a very easy job to defend it against invaders since they can't since they can't send their entire force through at once.
That is an excellent point. And I was thinking about this earlier, I think this may be a misdirect. So they mentioned, oh, what if other hidden forces are around and they're going to attack at the same time? Totally feasible. Or what if, and this is a stretch, so bear with me, what if the Oathgate spread being liberated by Ja-Anat means that they would be able to transport them to any Oathgate? And that's bad news for our heroes. So tune in to the next Bat Channel. No, that was bad. I'm going to cut that. I'm not going to cut that. I'm not going to have the time for that. There's so many things that could happen. I want to know. Can you show me?
I knew it. I knew you were doing it.
I used to think that song went on to say something about strange as lightning, not strange as
Dude,
lightning.
same.
Right?
Yeah, I always thought it was lightning.
Yeah. It's like, what is he talking about? Like, just because the song is set during a storm in Tarzan, I don't understand. What is Phil Collins singing about? It took me too long. Did y'all see that James Earl Jones died today?
Oh man, I know.
It was really
Those
sad.
are that's one of the ones that actually like hits me in the feels.
Yeah. I mean, like, what a life though. Like, what a I hope he was fulfilled.
If Disney doesn't respect him with like a dedication or something for him with the new Lion King movie coming out,
with Scar, right?
I'll be mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not Scar. He was Mufasa.
Well, yeah, but the movie is about Scar, right?
Is it?
Or is it Mufasa?
I thought it was about Mufasa. All right.
I'm ignorant.
I'm pretty sure the movie's literally called Lion King Mufasa.
I thought they were calling it Scar. I'm ignorant. I'm trying out new catchphrases. I'm not. I've got plenty of good ones. Yes, Griff.
Yeah.
I actually literally didn't know there was a new Lion King movie coming, so you're actually better on that than I am.
Yep.
My favorite saying is, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
Yep, that's a good one. One time I tried to work out something like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. My certificate is still in the mail." But that's a mouthful. So back to the
your
chat
dad jokes.
Yeah. Did we get any
What's that?
I was gonna ask, did we get any other big revelations? Shalom.
I'm peering through it right now, trying to make sure we didn't miss anything.
So it's not a big revelation, but I actually did like the fact that Shalon is realizing that she could turn her second spren into a shield to make it a sword and shield fighting style rather than just a sword fighting style, because I will freely admit that one of the things that kind of confused me about this series up until this point is that other than Kaladin, we really haven't seen, except for like discounting future stuff, just this series specifically.
As of September 9th.
Yes. We haven't seen anyone in the Rosharan system really use their spren as anything other than swords. as I said, apart from Paladin, where he briefly turns uh, Still into a spear for a little while. So
Into
I'm
shield.
kind of glad that. Hmm?
We do see him use it as a shield, as use Still as a shield once.
Oh, do
Mhm.
we? Okay. Still, I
He
am
against
just glad that we're seeing more of using the Spren as other types of weapons than just a sword.
It clicked
Yeah.
after I said September 9th that you meant as of right now in this moment in the Cosmere because of the Sunlit Man. Got
Yes,
it.
Sunlit Man, and also the pseudo sequel to Six of the Dusk,
Yes. Yes.
which
Yeah.
will be actually apparently part of Isles of Emberdark. Yeah, Isles of Emberdark.
It will.
So
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
Are we thinking that the armor will behave differently because it's made of different spren?
I expect like the same basic functions,
Mm-hmm.
but like
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 I wouldn't be
personality
shocked
wise.
if Kaladin being able to move the wind spren onto other people and protect them is like a Windrunner wind spren
Oh.
thing. And I wonder if Creation Spren could like almost use illusions themselves,
Or like
without the need for Stormlight. That would be that. Okay, wait, that actually be kind of cool.
that would be sick. That
Yeah,
would be OP.
and people would say, I was just about to say, people might say that's OP, but it's not, because you have to go on the journey and get to the fourth ideal, which
You're right.
it's canon that the third ideal is where most people tap out.
That's
So
true.
the fourth is like, and the fifth should be something crazy like, not infinite Stormlight, but maybe, it runs out less quickly. I don't know.
I agree.
But yeah,
Agree.
I'm curious to see if we see some, just even if it's just small things, like you said, it'll be the same blueprint for the most part. But just like an extra little bonus, I think would be kind of cool.
That would be really cool. I'm not sure where Griff went, and that's okay. Um, I think
Do you guys want to end with the favorite moments, or do you have anything else?
I was thinking, what if we went back through the epigraphs and was like, this is who it is, but it is getting late, and we can do that a different time. So
Yeah, we listeners, we are going to do a recap
yeah,
of the days. This is the end of day one, so
this is
we'll probably I'm thinking we only get 2 days, maybe
yeah,
three or part of three. But yeah, I think like a couple weeks before the book comes out, we can just do a recap in case people don't want to reread the chapters again.
I agree.
Um, and then we'll do the same thing for day two or whatever we get.
Sounds good. Yep.
Yeah,
So let's let's end with our favorite moments.
cool. What's yours?
Mine is the really bad joke that Lopin tells about
Damn it, I knew it.
the chasm fiend with
Yep,
that
that
gets
was
caught
mine.
and a bridge leader with a bad haircut, a
Yeah,
former
yeah,
bridge leader with a bad haircut. That was brilliant.
yeah. Yeah. No, I
sorry,
love
I had
that.
an obligation to take care of. My
Oh,
apologies.
no worries.
No worries.
Yeah, we're gonna end with our favorite moments. So mine was the joke Lopin tells about the chasm fiend and the bridge leader.
Yeah. Luckily, I had two. That it was that one, and then just Shalon getting her armor and the armor spren being
Shalon,
just clueless little idiots. I want to please. I love it. I love it.
Shalon.
That's good.
What was yours, Griff?
I'm not gonna unhear that aliens from Toy Story now. I hope you know that.
You got it, man. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to
God.
be present in your mind during every single reread of the Stormlight Archive you ever do. You will not hear Michael Kramer's voice or Kate Redding's voice when Shalon gets her armor spren. You will hear Shalon, Shalon. Okay, Griff, what was your favorite moment?
So actually, just to mention on this friend thing for the armor, it kind of reminds me. There's a series that I read called the Encrypted series by Shauna McGuire, and in said series there is a little colony of mice that treat the main characters of the books like gods, and so hearing these very eager to please but possibly ignorant little things that want to please Jalan very much reminded me of the Azelin mice from that series. Um, However, as for favorite parts, I do really, really want to see the whole sword and shield thing with Shallan work out, where she starts to use two, because it is. It also brings forward something, which is the fact that, as cool as it seems, it is very impractical to be using two full-size weapons at once. As cool as it can be to see in a video game or a movie or whatever, it is actually highly impractical. But using a sword and shield is much more so, and I'm not going to lie that it's kind of nice to see Sanderson taking that into account when it comes to actual sword fighting styles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I also like the fact that the Oath Gates became liberated. I'm really curious to see how that affects their powers. I also like finding out their Inkspren. Honestly, that was a really interesting fact, because we didn't they had always been presented as like this unique kind of spren, when really they're not. They're just Inkspren that have been bound to a specific service, I guess. So yeah, it'll just be interesting to see what happens on that front.
Cool. I agree.
Yep.
Well, with that, I think we are done with day one. So, Griff, if you will take us out.
Indeed. Until next time, don't panic, world hoppers.
Life before death, strength before weakness.
Creation spren before destination.
Nice.